Hello and welcome to today's webinar entitled Teaching Primary Computing Without Computers. My name's Wendy McLeod and I am one of the Community Outreach Managers for Computing at School, and I manage the communities across London and the east of England. Apologies this morning that we started a few minutes late. We had some technical issues and I had to restart my computer. So thank you for being patient and bearing with us, and I'm pleased that we're back online again and hopefully everything will go smoothly from this point forwards. In this webinar, we're going to be discussing what unplugged activities are, the benefits of using them, how they should be used, and finishing up by highlighting some of the free resources that are available for you to use in your school. Joining me this morning, we have two fantastic panelists, and I'm going to introduce them to you now. First of all, we have Neil Rickus, and Neil currently has a variety of different roles. He is a senior lecturer in computing education at the University of Hertfordshire. He's a primary education specialist for the BCS Chartered Institute for IT, and also works as an independent consultant. Our second panelist is John Chippendall, aka Dr. Chip.
Morning, everyone.
And John is a teacher and computing lead at Crumpsall Lane Primary School. He's also a CAS outreach manager for the Northwest and an author of the Barefoot Computing resources, which you're going to be hearing more about later. And finally, waiting in the wings, we have Tim Wilson, who is also a CAS community outreach manager, and he manages communities across the Midlands and also some in the Southwest. Tim's going to be keeping an eye on your questions this morning, so if you have any questions as we go along, please can you put them into the question section, and we'll try to bring as many to the panelists as we can. All the resources that we are referring to this morning, you can find links to those on the handout that's been uploaded. So if you click the orange square button with an arrow at the top, it maximizes the box, which then allows you to see handouts. And you can either download the handout while the webinar is taking place, or you can go to the CAS website and I'll be uploading the handout there later on this afternoon. So let's get started. Question one. Let's start by asking the panel, what are unplugged activities? And can you give an example of one? And we'll go to John first of all to explain a bit more about teaching primary computing without computers.
Oh, okay, so I'll kick things off. Okay, so unplugged activities are activities, lessons that we're doing where we're exploring computing concepts, but we're not necessarily using technology to do them. So it's away from the technology. There's kind of two kind of distinctions. I talk about plugged activities where we're using technology and unplugged where we're not. And an example of one that I've done recently when I was doing, I'm going to share in a bit some resources doing sort of video teaching, was teaching the idea of decomposition, so a computational thinking skill of breaking bigger problems down. And you might use that in sort of a plugged context when we're coding, breaking our program down into parts. But this we actually did by teaching a hand jive routine. So like a hand sequence of hand moves to make like a hand dance, and actually breaking those sequence down into different steps, leading to an algorithm. So we're exploring teaching those computational thinking concepts, but we're not using technology to do it. So that's how I think of unplugged resources.
Thank you. It's a good example there. The hand jive sounds a fun one to do. And Neil, yeah, what would you say?
Yeah, because they don't need technology, it means that we can get away from the machines. That might be out in the playground, on the field, or it might be just the internet has died for the afternoon and you need something else to do. Because they don't need technology, it also means you don't need a load of new kit, and usually it's not going to cost much money as well. I often use them to teach programming concepts for the first time, and we're going to start with a little example. And we're going to be looking at selection, so if, then, else type statements. And you're going to be my class for the next 30 seconds or so. So I've got my selection statement here, and it says, if the word I say is cheese, then I would like you to clap your hands. Else, or otherwise, if I say anything else, donkey, cow, ham, whatever it is, I would like you to click your fingers. So let's see how we get on. I'll go nice and slowly at first. So my first word is cheese. Good stuff. Tim and Wendy, you can join in as well. It's all right. Don't be shy.
Oh, yeah, not just me.
Yeah.
Okay, next word is mouse. Well, we do need to be able to see your hands, Wendy. Yeah, thanks. All right. Okay, I'll get a bit quicker then. So cheese. Cheese. Coffee. Water. Cheese. Fromage. Oh, hang on, John, hang on. I said fromage. That's not cheese. What's going on?
Well, for my limited knowledge of French, I believe that means cheese in French, Neil.
Now, you are officially cleverer than a computer. I'll give you a round of applause. Very well done. And your brain can make links between languages, prior knowledge, all this beautiful stuff that you know about. But my poor computer here, can't do that. It's a bit thick. So it's 1 or 0, on or off, yes or no, cheese or not cheese. So our good old computer here would have clicked their finger. So hopefully you can see by doing a very short activity, we looked at how the concept works, and I haven't had to do anything more than get a pen and paper and say random words at you.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to remember that you don't need expensive kits to do unplugged activities. You can get started with them straight away using, as you've shown, a whiteboard and a pen or pen and paper. You can go take the children to different parts of the school as well when schools start back, and it can be done outside or in the hall. So thank you for drawing attention to that. Question 2 is, are there actually any benefits to teaching unplugged activities? Wouldn't it be better for children who are learning to code just to go straight onto a machine and like using a program like Scratch and just get started that way?
Yeah, there is that argument, but by going away from the machines, it allows us to focus on the actual concept we're examining, rather than worrying about, oh, how does this bit of technology work, or oh, actually I'm not that familiar with the mouse, so I don't know how to click a button. And I'm sure those of you particularly teaching early years or Key Stage 1 have seen how difficult some of our children actually find using their keyboard and mouse as they come into school. It also means you don't have to worry about things like syntax or the required commands that we might have to use in a programming language or the environment in front of us. The other benefit is it allows us to develop some of those softer skills related to computational thinking. We often refer to those as the approaches. So one example might be collaboration, where children are working together to solve a problem. So it gives us a great opportunity to do those kind of things.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, actually, remembering that there might be some children in the class, when you say, well, we're doing coding, they might be quite fearful of that. And so it's a good way to start introducing those computational thinking concepts. So thank you for that. And John, do you have anything to add?
Just to echo a couple of things that you've both said there, really, that actually the computational thinking, developing computational thinking skills in pupils is a big part of what we're trying to achieve in the curriculum. And that's then to apply those in a coding context, but they can also be applied in a range of problem solving contexts. And unplugged activities are kind of one of the ideal mediums for developing those skills without having any of the potential barriers around use of technology or knowing how to code in the language that Neil's already mentioned.
Yeah, it's interesting mentioning about the barriers, because we've all had those situations where we've started a computing lesson and there's been an issue with the hardware or the software or the internet connection, and then that's dominated and taken up most of the lesson. And that's a massive advantage, isn't it, of using Unplugged? You can just get started straight away.
Yeah, there's so much of the curriculum we can start to cover through this approach.
Yeah, fantastic. Question number 3 is there any research that supports the view that unplugged activities are beneficial? Neil?
Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen to show you a couple of academic papers. So hopefully you can see Google Chrome there. And this first paper looks at the development of computational thinking skills through unplugged activities with a particular focus on primary schools. A lot of the research out there involves looking at higher education settings, or at least with older children. And what the study found is that introducing programming concepts, and in particularly various bits of computational thinking skills, it means that their computational thinking ability and their motivation improves as well, so that the final program that they would actually produce is of a better quality. The other one to share with you is Bell's paper, which is on the screen now. And well, what Bell highlights is that computational thinking can be enhanced through these activities, but in particular for younger children, it's really beneficial. Something I'll mention in a bit is how this might relate to older children and some of the differences there. So the research evidence generally says that this is a good thing to be doing, and we only highlighted 2 papers here. There's plenty more out there, but it's got to be used at the right time, and there's certainly a time and a place to use it, not all the time, as the children will be disengaged quite quickly.
Thank you. We've got a question come in, and actually it matches the question that I was going to go to next, so thank you for that. The question is, would you use it as a starter activity or throughout the lesson? And it's exactly, I think you've read my script, Katia, because my question was, how should it be taught, as a standalone lesson or as part of every coding lesson? And it's certainly something that I thought a lot about when I was leading computing in my primary school. So we'll bring your question to the panel now and get their opinion on this. John, what would you say? Is it better as a standalone lesson, or should it feature in every coding lesson?
Yeah, so I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit here and say it varies massively. I think that I like to use unplugged activities quite a bit in sort of starters and plenaries to refresh, consolidate conceptual kind of understanding. But also in our curriculum at Crumpsall, in Key Stage 1, if we look at our sort of longer term planning, we have a unit, half-term unit, focusing more on computational thinking, unplugged activities to introduce lots of the language of things like decomposition, algorithms through the unplugged activities. And then when they move on to doing coding based activities, they've got that language, they can then apply it with their coding, and they still might do small, shorter unplugged lessons within the kind of coding scheme as well. So it varies. What Neil was saying, we don't want to be blocking out and perhaps doing too much unplugged for too long period, because pupils might become disengaged with that. They want to be using technology in the computing and seeing how it applies to their work on the computers. So I don't know if Neil's got really Neil disagrees with me there, got a different view, or what do you think?
No, yeah, the word I'd written down in my notes was depends. It could be sound like children need to know why they're doing it and what the purpose is of it, and sort of how it links into what they're eventually going to do. So it could simply be a reminder of what they've undertaken beforehand. It might be that perhaps it's included as part of your planning process to just make sure children can recall what they've done in previous years. But as John mentioned, children do need to have experience with technology and need to get their hands dirty. And so if we're using it all the time, they're not going to have that benefit.
Yeah, Rachel was just asking a question about whether we can put links in the chat. Just to remind you that all the links that we're referring to, the documents, the research documents and all the other resources are detailed on the handout. So do download the handout either during this webinar or later from the CAS website. There was another question, which is from Felicity. And it says, so would you maybe do a stretch of 4 or so lessons all unplugged with, say, year 1? So she's asking whether to introduce this whole idea of coding unplugged to group them and then move on. So you're being pushed here, the panel, for an answer of, you know, is it okay? I think she's asking, is it okay to have just an unplugged lesson by itself, or a series of a few of them?
So one by itself, I think that works. I think that 4 or 5, maybe I would intersperse that with application of those unplugged skills into Bebots or apps like Daisy Dinosaur, Bebot apps, so that I think that going that long without the application might be a bit too long, perhaps. I don't know what Neil thinks on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll see it as a, oh, we're pretending to be robots lesson eventually, rather than actually this is a computing type subject.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think the advice here is, if you're doing an unplugged session, then always as part of that, you're making those links back to the coding that the children are doing, so that they understand, you know, why the purpose, why you're doing it is really key. Thank you. Question 5 is there, so going on a bit further about this whole situation of whether it should be taught as standalone or part of each lesson. John, could you just explain a bit more about whether you think there aren't any advantages or disadvantages to using one over the other?
Yeah, so one of the things I sort of noted down just when we were sort of reflecting on this, and we've started to talk about it a little bit here, is that there is perhaps a danger for a bit of a gulf to open up between pupils seeing the computational thinking as something separate to its application in programming. So unplugged computational thinking activities are great for developing pupils' computational thinking skills, but they do need to then be applying it, as we've already been saying. And that's one of the reasons actually within the Barefoot Computing project, which I'll talk more about in a minute, we've recently put together a new workshop actually on programming. I know the focus today is about unplugged and sort of more computational thinking, but the reason we did that is because we wanted to really clearly show the link between how we get from these unplugged activities where we might be making plasticine giraffes to coding, because there is a really strong link there. So in terms of advantages and disadvantages, I think if we do it too much unplugged in isolation without showing how it applies, then there is perhaps a disadvantage and people see it as two different things.
Thank you. Neil, should every year group do unplugged activities? Are they suitable for all age groups?
Yeah, I think so. These can be used with children of all ages, particularly those in the primary school. But as with good teaching, as it were, we do need to take into account their prior knowledge, their ability, and sort of the interests of the children. In the Bell study that I mentioned earlier, he outlined how with older children, they might actually see themselves as experts or perhaps know-it-alls in the subject already, and they might therefore lack motivation when they're away from the machines as well. So I think with older children, perhaps a bit of work needs to be done to explain the benefit of them and those links that we've mentioned a couple of times already to the other areas of the computing curriculum become even more important.
Thank you. We've talked a lot so far about unplugged activities being useful as an introduction and nice links with coding, but what about other areas of the computing curriculum? Can you give an example of where they could be used to support another part of the curriculum, John?
Yes, so within Key Stage 2, people learn about the kind of computer science behind how things like search engines work. And you can do some nice unplugged activities. And Barefoot, we offer sort of ideas around unplugged activities to teach that, where people's actually create sort of web pages, paper-based web pages, and explore the kind of scoring system that Google uses to work out how those rank. And again, on the search thing, actually how Google builds up an index of the web. So the kind of networks or the use of the internet, that side of things can be taught through Unplugged as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's a good idea for computing teachers to look for those opportunities, really, whatever they're teaching, where they can be linked with an unplugged activity. Thank you.
Yeah, I really like the bits linked to networks. Actually, you get people seeing bits of data or packets moving around the network and sending themselves to the printer and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think there's something really powerful in the pupils actually becoming the technology sort of thing that they're exploring, they're learning about, and doing that passing around. Because then when they do come to use the technology, you know, they've got that recent relevant experience. They're kind of knowing a little bit, so that's what's going on behind it. I've acted it out. I think that's the drama stuff within Unplugged. I think is particularly powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to spend a few moments now looking at free resources. Everyone likes free resources, don't they?
Yeah.
And schemes of work that are available for teaching these kind of activities. So I know, John and Neil, you've got some different websites and things that you'd like to show the audience. So I'll hand over to John first.
Okay. Right. Let me make myself presenter. There we go. And okay, can I just confirm that you can see my browser?
We can, yes.
Cool. Okay, right. Okay, so first thing I just want to share with everyone, Barefoot Computing, if you haven't heard of Barefoot before, but it is a joint project run by BT and Computing at Schools through BCS, and we provide free resources and CPD to support teachers in schools teach computing. Majority of the resources are around the computer science side of the curriculum, but we are doing more in sort of digital literacy and IT, and we have a lot of unplugged resources in here, and the references I've been making today have come from sort of talking about different Barefoot resources. So let me just show you how to find them in here and give you a quick tour of what we have available. You do need to register for Barefoot, but it is completely free. It's a quick registration just to provide your details and some school details. And then if you go in, once you log in, you can go to the lessons part of the website, and we have a filter system here, you know, like you find on TS, whatever. These are all of our lesson plans in Barefoot. We've got, you know, I can't remember exactly what number we're up to now, but we've got a lot in here covering all of the key elements of the curriculum. And on the left-hand side here, you can just filter. So if I filter to unplugged resources here, we've got 18 different unplugged resources, and it will filter them on the right-hand side here. So let me just show you the kind of thing that we provide for all of our lessons. Let me just find the one that I mentioned before. Here we go, decomposition unplugged. So this was the hand jive activity that I mentioned. So when you click on the activity, it takes you to a sort of landing page that gives you an overview of what that resource, that lesson entails, the pupil objectives, and some pointers on what you require and assessment opportunities. And then if you click here to download, you'll get a full resource kit, including presentation, any worksheets that pupils require, Any additional, let's open that up there. There we go. Any, if you do look at the coding stuff, we provide sample scratch files, etc. as well. So all of the resources that you need to deliver that lesson. And as I say many times, it's all freely available. Just whilst we're sort of sharing the Barefoot website as well, just to let you know, we also have guides to support you and develop your own understanding, your own subject knowledge. So within the My Learning section, we have a number of guides talking you through all the different parts of the curriculum, whether that's computational thinking that I've just clicked in here. So if you go into any one of these, you might want to learn a little bit more about abstraction. And we tell you what it is, why it's important, and what it looks like in the primary curriculum as well. So please do go and check out Barefoot and have a go at our Unplugged resources. Now, the other thing I was just going to quickly mention as well is over the last 2 or 3 months, as we've been in lockdown, I have been doing something called the Daily Dose. And the website here for this is drchips.weebly.com. And on the Daily Dose, it's been a live daily lesson at 10 AM. And Neil did one of them as well. So thank you again for that. And on a Tuesday, it was Computational Thinking Tuesdays. Now it's finished. It has finished now because I'm returning to school. But all of the previous episodes are available if you go to past doses. So there's about 36 of them, and you'll see on each Tuesday one, Computational Thinking Tuesdays, that one was speed drawing. Computational Thinking Tuesdays, that one was the hand jive lessons. So each of these lessons are still available. You can go and watch them. I'll just play. I must say that the production values are fairly minimal on this. Quite often I have to adjust the camera because I've cut my head off or it stutters a little bit. But what I've done is basically modeled teaching the Unplugged resources direct to pupils at home doing their home learning. So please do explore them and use them if you think they will be useful. I'll just show you a little bit of this one, which was teaching abstraction through speed modeling. Side the body and color them red. 3, now draw a smaller circle on top of the body for the face. 4, inside the face, draw a mouth with huge vampire teeth. 5, add 4 arms and 4 legs onto the body. 6, draw 2 spiky horns on top of the head on either side. Okay, so actually what I was doing there was reading out an algorithm that had been sent into the Daily Dose because we had a showcase blog from a previous episode. So that episode, I was recapping algorithms and then I went on to look at abstraction. So there we go. There's a couple of resources to point you in the direction of from me, and I will hand over now to Neil.
Cheers. Yeah, I've stolen the screen. So I'm going to start with a book, actually. Teaching Computing Unplugged in Primary Schools by Helen Caldwell and Neil Smith. Actually just got the contents page up there, and actually got a chapter in there, John. I hope you got paid handsomely.
I do. I've got
that. And
on my shelf here, actually.
Oh, no. And lost my thread. Oh yeah, and it links to lots of different topics, which are really nice. And these aren't broken down by curriculum subject, perhaps. They're ways that we can engage children, so such as being explorers or musicians, for example. Next one I wanted to share with you were the resources from teachcomputing.org, so National Centre of Computing Education. And I mentioned earlier about teaching of networks, and you see here at year 3, we've got a unit about connecting computers where children actually go on a network hunt around the school. They find the router, find where the server is, and so on and so forth. And then we sort of go on to look at how the World Wide Web can provide different services and so on and so forth. So the resources here are all free. They go from year 1 all the way up to year 6. It's pretty much complete. All the resources will be there by the end of July. I think it's just the programming ones that aren't quite on there yet, but a lot of their activities and a lot of their schemes of work do involve those that are unplugged. Code-it.co.uk. This is Phil Bagg's site. He's a well-respected master teacher. He's got a load of planning templates linked to Unplugged, but also in a lot of his other resources, particularly those related to programming, he includes Unplugged activities all the way through.
Yeah, Neil, there was, sorry to butt in, there was a question about, is there a plan for the search engine activity? And I believe that's one of his activities.
Yeah, I think on the, if I go into his non-CS plans, and I do.
We do have it in the Barefoot one as well.
As well.
Thanks for answering that, John. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is this one here. Yeah, and he's got I know the one you're referring to, Wendy. Sorry, everybody having a looking at my screen, but yeah, Phil actually it's got a video as well. How asking your mum is like doing a Google search. I think it's along those lines. So yeah, he has got resources on there too. But there's just mentioned there's stuff in Barefoot as well. CSUnplugged.org. If I go onto topics here, we can see all the various areas that they cover, and all of these are for ages 5 to 10, which is really nice. And they've got lots of hands-on things that children can do to get them active. And something I noticed yesterday when just preparing for this, they've also got some at-home activities as well now, which just been released over the past few months. And these allow you, so really good to share with your parents, for example, particularly if they've got children that aren't back at school. It's Hello World magazine. If you're not familiar with Hello World, this is a free magazine released about once a term. The PDF is always available for free. And if you're a UK-based educator, which the majority of you are, you can also get a printed copy delivered free to your door as well. So they're great authors in the webinar at the minute. And in particular, in this issue, the latest one, issue 13, Hannah Hagan and some of her colleagues have written this really nice article related to Unplugged for preschool, so those in reception even younger too. And I just noticed I was meant to mention that earlier, so apologies for jumping the gun on that, Wendy. But every issue there's been articles related to the teaching of unplugged computing and ideas for use in the classroom.
We've only got officially 5 minutes left. I think if it's okay, we'll go over by an extra 5 minutes, as unfortunately we had to start slightly later due to some technical issues. Because I'd like to just cover the last couple of questions, which were to do with activities that were specifically for SEND children, and also whether the unplugged activities could be done at home, and whether you could suggest resources which could be shared with parents. I know there's been lots of new sections added to the Barefoot website and also within computing at school. So I don't know if you could just, both of you, just to sort of highlight where those are for people who are listening.
Yeah, do you mind if I just grab the screen back? And because I know that when you let me know about these questions, my response was Barefoot, Barefoot, Barefoot. So I'm going to share some more from Barefoot. Firstly, on the SEND resources, actually within the lessons that I was talking about previously, we do have lessons in there that have been written specifically with SEND pupils in mind, and you can select these on the left here. And then we've got a range of different resources which perhaps look at alternative ways for introducing concepts, etc., for SEND pupils. With the preschool, early years and foundation and at home, we've also got a new section on the website, the at home section. where we've got 3 different sets of resources here, and a video from this chap at the top. Within here, these are all unplugged computational thinking based activities that can be done at home as part of home learning. And many of these, the Key Stage 1 activities, can quite easily be adapted and are suitable for sort of the early years setting. Particularly, we've got some really nice ideas here in mini missions. So the idea behind these resources were we wanted just quick ideas which essentially need very little or no resources to do, that parents and children could do together at home. So things like the teddy bear hunt is a lovely activity, hiding the teddy and then giving writing out or saying the algorithm to locate it within the house. You know, that's kind of ideal for sort of Key Stage 1 and before pupils. So just to share that those resources are there as well. And we've actually got 30 of these little mini missions. We've got 5 for each computational thinking concept. So yeah, just to share those as well, Wendy.
There's a question, John, about videos which explained abstraction and whether they're still available on the Barefoot website.
Videos which explained abstraction.
Yes, there's a question.
Okay, so quite a time ago, when we first wrote the resources, we did put together little explain. Was it like a explanation video where you sort of see an animation of a hand explaining things? I'll see if the person.
So, the person who's asked this question said that they used to like using them with staff, and they were asking whether they were still available.
Okay, so I can find out. They're not now included within the pages of the website, but I'm sure that we will still have them somewhere and that we can share them if they would like to use them. So best way is just to get in contact with the Barefoot team. If you get in contact with the Barefoot team through the website, go to the contact section. I'll let them know as well that you're going to be in contact, and I'll sort that out for you.
We've got 5 minutes left, so Neil, if you want to just explain what you're showing there, and then we'll draw things to a close. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is the Active Mind and Body series, which Computing at Schools have launched over the past month or so. And it allows you to learn computer skills, again, away from the computer. And what we've done here is camouflage learning. If we're looking at everyday skills and activities such as sport, cooking, making music, and the videos are all aimed at parents as well. And each one has a help sheet explaining some of the terms discussed in the videos, and also lots of further activities that you can do linked to it. So it's yeah, really nice resource in there. Tim's done a lot of work on those, and learn computing by stealth. Also through having fun is probably a nice way to describe it.
Thank you. Just going to talk through a couple of future events that I'd like to draw people's attention to. Our CAS virtual showcase begins on Monday, and you can view the full programme on the CAS website. The easiest way to find this is to go to our community events page and click on the link at the top. If you're interested in other sessions to do with Unplugged, there's one in the actual CAS virtual showcase itself, and that's on next Thursday, the 25th of June at 11 AM. That's being led by Martin Bailey. If you can't attend that session, please register and you'll be able to receive the recording of that webinar. And the CAS Darlington community are running a Barefoot workshop, which is predominantly focusing on the Unplugged activities, some of the ones that we've been mentioning today, and that's happening on the 30th of June. Again, you can sign up on the CAS website. So do check out those events if you're interested in looking more into the things that we've discussed this morning. And thank you to everyone who joined the webinar today. A special thanks to Neil, to John and to Tim for being part of it, and we look forward to seeing you at a future CAS event. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.